Right. The one thing I do want to talk about is, because we've talked about the keeper in the news, we've talked about Bailey Peacock-Farrell potentially returning. We've all been doing our scouting. I want us to all pitch a keeper that we think either may happen or we've been mildly linked with, or just someone we think that would be great for us even if we don't think it'll necessarily happen. So a speculation topic, but with some sort of quite a bit of research in there, but also a potential bit of background knowledge. So I'm going to start with Jake. Pitch me one of your keepers, please.
Josh Griffiths from West Brom had an excellent...
We've spoken about him a lot.
We've spoken about him a bit. He had an excellent season the following season with Lincoln. Really good. 21. He just broken into West Brom's first team and didn't do that badly, to be fair. Now, the thing here, he's only 21, but West Brom are in a financial mess. They're going to have to sell some assets. And this is someone who we could pick up really cheap in that young keeper role to mould into being one of the next keepers. Granted, you want to have another experienced pro, but we got that in Dawson. I'd go after Josh Griffiths because he's 21. We can mould him. He's shown what he can do in League One. He's looked okay in the Championship so far. And I think it's one that if you're thinking about resale value and stuff like that, this one makes sense.
But you just said he's their first team keeper. Would he not just be their first team keeper?
I think they'll get another first team keeper. The thing is, I think you got with West Brom this season, they have got a new manager in, but they have to clear the books. They are not in a good way financially. I think they're going to have to sell some assets to bring in.
I would personally counter argument and say if you're in that situation, you keep hold of your younger players and you try and ship out your older ones that would be more of your sellable assets while you can. Josh Griffiths is probably one that you keep and develop for the future, especially if you're going to chuck him in there and keep him in there. So I think I understand why he'd be a great signing for us in terms of the potential and the age, but I think West Brom would make more sense if they're in financial trouble specifically. I would take the counter argument of he's the one you probably keep hold of. Thoughts on Josh Griffiths, Jack?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the one that I'd throw in the ring is the guy that's been on loan at MK Dons the last season and a half, Jamie Cumming, who is technically Chelsea's player, but he's been there on loan, obviously. And do you not remember last season? I say last season. I mean the season where we lost to Sunderland in the playoffs. He was absolutely ridiculous. Like they were touting him as the best goalkeeper in the league. The season before last, and he's effectively been a shining light in the dismal season that MK Dons have had this season just gone. And his current market value is circa around £1 million according to Transfermarkt. So, it's not like a total reliable source, shall we say. But,
yeah, it's valuation, yeah.
He's made 54 appearances in 2022 to 23, keeping 11 clean sheets and conceding 77 goals. Now, he only conceded that many goals because the defence in front of him were absolutely atrocious, which is why they've got relegated. It's a bit like us being absolutely atrocious and having Kieran Westwood in the net. Like,
my argument for you would be, you talked about Championship. Maybe so, but are you talking about this person who starts or pushes Dawson? That'll be a big thing.
Pushes Dawson.
That makes more sense because what you were saying earlier about Reece James. What you were saying earlier about Reece James was the fact that he's never stepped up. This guy's only played in League 2 and League 1. So in terms of actually having the Championship experience, he is not that. So if he did come in and was potentially the future, that would make a lot of sense. Let me just try and find out about his contract.
He's 23 years old, so he's like the long-term backup. Backup for now behind Dawson, but in the long term, he will be the future definite number one because he's got a lot of potential.
It's interesting to see.
You've really got a chip on your shoulder that I'm so anti-sign Reece James, haven't you, James?
I just wasn't expecting a lack of footballing knowledge on my podcast.
Oh, yeah?
No, I'm joking. His contract's up.
So he'll be free.
And he's 23. So we wouldn't have to pay a mandatory fee for him either.
My only thing with that is he's a free agent and MK Dons need a keeper. I think he's going to MK Dons.
They've just dropped.
Yeah, but it's Championship versus League 2,
Haven't they just
mate.
dropped? Did they get relegated?
They've just dropped to League 2.
They got relegated to League 2, but they're going to throw a bit of cash at it, I reckon.
I'm telling you, pick up Jamie. We'd have to pay Compo to Chelsea's 23.
Yeah.
If they've offered him a deal. But basically, So apparently, reading here, Man City are looking to bring him into their youth setup. So Football League World have been talking about that. There might be interest from Bolton in him, which would actually be a good move for Jamie coming. But if we're looking at a young player to push Dawson, yeah, I'd 100% agree with that. Especially if we can get him on a free with a bit of compo, 300, 400k, that'd be a decent signing. It makes sense. That's the kind of player you want,
See?
actually.
I do have football knowledge, James. See?
I was being facetious. Here's a player that I think would be the ideal situation if you are replacing Dawson, right? So we've covered every end of the spectrum. Marek Rodak, Fulham. He is the epitome of a player who plays for them when they get relegated to the Championship and does really well and then never starts and sits on the bench in the Prem. He is 26 years old. He is 6'4". Last season, he was on the bench pretty much for them all season. The season before that, when in the Championship, he kept 14 clean sheets in 33 Championship appearances. The season before that, they were in the Prem. He was on the bench all season again. The season before that, he spent... he was with Rotherham in the Championship. 33 appearances, 14 clean sheets again.
I was going to say, I thought that name sounded familiar.
He is apparently, like, if you look at his sort of Google value, transfer market value, that sort of thing, it says around 3.5 million. The problem is, what I'm reading a lot online is because he's lost his place to Leno, and it looks like Leno will stay at Fulham and be in that, that number one keeper. Rodak is at that age at 26 where he wants to be first team choice somewhere. So I reckon if we were being serious about this and we really wanted a new goalkeeper, he would make sense to me.
Yeah.
He would be I think he would actually, funnily enough, you were talking about Leeds, he'd be a fantastic signing for Leeds in terms of a new goalkeeper.
Yeah.
But if we could, I think a player of his caliber at his age, if we're looking for a first team goalkeeper, he'd be a shout. Any thoughts on that one, Jake?
I think that's a good shout, actually, because he's at the right age. He's already done it at Championship, so he's already got the Championship experience, so we're not having that kind of, let's see what happens. I think it's the right age for someone to push Dawson, and you've got that experienced pro just in case we need it, which means then we can help develop Charles. This one actually makes a lot of sense in terms of it, and you probably could get him on a decent deal because I can't see him wanting much.
I could see them wanting a couple of million, but it's also a case of if we are going for it, a couple of million on a player like that makes more sense to me than the older signings we would have made.
Oh yeah,
Jack.
And if you say this is the scenario where we cash in on Dawson and replace Dawson, then I think we can get about 2 million for Dawson from somebody like a Huddersfield or somebody like that. Around that sort of ilk of club. Then that effectively pays for Rodak, I guess. But again, like, he's 26, so that's also a sort of age where we can give him like a 5-year deal. And again, right, this is a fun thing that I've just thought about. Why don't we give players a 5-year deal or something like that, even if we don't want to bring them to term, because then they'll sell for more. If they've got a good few years left on the deal.
Here's the danger with that, Jack. You players will run down contracts.
We've done that in the past.
Yeah.
I think it's a terrible idea, actually. Sorry, mate. You've been in for some pelters this episode. But in terms of...
Oh, yeah, sorry, because the players themselves have got to get their agents to find them a new club and get them interest and all that crap, haven't they?
And they can decide they just want to sit on their wage and not do anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, and be happy not playing, and then you've got a bloated squad.
Yeah.
I think the best way to go is shorter contracts with options, and that's what we've been doing. Our transfer strategy in that regard has been a lot better recently. But, I picked out Marek Rodak because he was one that I've always noticed in the past few seasons. He's just not played in the Prem, but he's been in that Fulham squad, right?
I mean, Christ,
And then it
they've
comes down
done
to the
so
champion he
well when
plays.
he's been the number one for Fulham in the Championship, and they've got promoted with him.
Exactly.
Like
Yeah.
once, if not more than that. So
Yeah.
he's got the championship promotion experience.
Also,
And he's
remember
played in the area
them
with
getting
Rotherham.
10th place as well.
Yeah.
They cemented themselves as a kind of Premier League team this year. So
Yeah.
they'll have a bit more money to spend.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I think it would make perfect sense. I do think he would potentially go to a top-end championship club. We want to be that, but are we that straight away? No, of course not. There's work to be put in firsthand, so it'll be interesting to see what happened with him.